right, make a wish.
You've been with them from the beginning. You watched their first steps. You've heard their first words. You've cheered them on at their first game or school play. When they were sad or hurt, you were the first person they ran to. When they did something great, you were the first person they told. But somewhere along the way, you might feel like you and your kids got disconnected. Conversations became harder. Family time started getting replaced by screen time. Sometimes, it might even feel like you and your kids are speaking different languages. You might feel the self-doubt rising. Am I doing enough? Am I raising them right? Am I doing what's best for them?
Yes, you are doing enough. You are raising great kids. And God has equipped you with everything you need to be a great mother and a great father. You see, Dr. Meg Meeker and I have talked to millions of parents and millions of students, and they've shared their stories with us. We've learned that your child needs you. And regardless of where your relationship is with them today, you can form a deeper relationship with them. Welcome to Smart Parent. And I need y'all to make some noise because it's time to get started right now. I gotta ask this question to start off because I just believe in starting off right. If you love your child, your grandchild, I want you to make a lot of noise right now. Yeah, that's good. You know, if Dave Ramsey was on stage, I'm pretty sure y'all shout. If Beyonce came to the stage, y'all would go crazy. Do y'all even know who Beyonce is? You know, and one thing that I love is I love parents who love their children. And tonight we're talking about how to be smart parents. And here's the truth. I've talked to some of you all already and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't even know if I'm doing the right thing. And here's the truth. You are doing the right thing. You are the best thing that your child will ever have in their life because you are their parent. We have this light on stage, and I brought this out because I really wanted to symbolize your kid. Your kid is the light, but as you see, this light is not illuminated. It has no power, there's no brightness to it because it's not connected to a source. And when I think about that, I say, you know what? Let me bring out a cord here. And this blue cord represents a parent. This is an extension cord. It's not the power source. It's the extension to the power source. There's only one source, you guys, and that's God. Once this is connected to that cord, it illuminates that light. We're in a world filled with darkness. Our future is depending on the choices you make with your kids. We need our kids to be as bright as they can be. But if they're not connected to you, their mother, their father, their grandparents, they'll never brighten up this world. They need your love. Before joining Ramsey Solutions team, I had the opportunity to serve as a youth pastor and associate pastor at one of the largest churches in America. About 30,000 members, and 5,000 of them were my kids. I don't have any biological kids, thank God, because I'm not married. I'm doing it the right way. And so I had 5, y'all thank you for that little clap right there. Like, yes, I'm trying to do it the right way, not the world way. Anyways, one day, this father walked in and he walked into my office and he told me a story about one of my kids. You know, this father loves his kids. Every single day when he would get off of work, he'll come home, he will always pray, God, take everything off of me that was from the job. When I go into this house, help me put on my father and my husband's head. When he would walk through the front door, he would leave his cell phone at the front door, he would leave his backpack at the front door, and he would immediately be greeted by his kids. He'll be immediately greeted by his wife. And he loved them. He would spend time with them and say, you know what? Hey, what are you doing? How was school? Oh, your girlfriend just broke up with you? Wow, are you okay? He would really be there for his kids. At dinner time, he would spend time with them and really be there at the table and be present with them. Because he said, I wanted my kids to know that I loved them. One day he walked in the house. His wife and his daughter wasn't home. He wasn't greeted by his son. He said, Anthony, that was weird. My son always would come downstairs and say, hey, Pops, what's up? He didn't. I called for him. He didn't come. I started walking up the stairs. I'm like, hey, son. He didn't come. But I noticed that his door was cracked. When I walked through the door, I seen my son with a knife to his wrist. And he started crying, and he was looking at me like, Dad, I've been waiting on you. Immediately, the father didn't freak out. He didn't panic out. He said, I just want to love my son. And he said, son, what is going on? And he said, my girlfriend from 2 years just broke up with me. While he's telling me this story, I'm like, from 2 years? And he was like, yeah. He said, I just said, forget all of that. I need to love him. And he said, son, I love you. Son, your mother loves you. Son, your sister loves you. Son, if you do this, you're gonna hurt us all. Son, I love you. And he said, Dad, I just wanted to hear somebody say, I love you, and I knew it was going to be you. He started walking towards his son. His son started crying. He dropped the knife and he fell in his father's arms. And for a whole hour, his father just sat there and just loved him. The whole point of this story, Minneapolis, is that your kid needs your love. Your love. And tonight, that's what we're going to talk about. You guys are closer than you already think. You guys are doing an amazing job. We're just gonna help you as a parent understand some things. Now I'm gonna come back out later on this evening and talk about, hey, what are your kids thinking? What are they saying to me? And so to kick off the night, this is what I wanna do. I want you to open up your book. And inside the book, on page 3, I want you to write down one thing you did as a parent this week that you wish you had done differently and that you are proud of. Now, I want you to be honest, okay? You're not a perfect parent. You've made some mistakes. Your kids are not here, hopefully. And just be honest. Take 30 seconds and really just process that. What did I do this week that, you know what, I could have done better? Love it. Another 10 seconds. What is one thing you're proud of? What is one thing that put a smile on your son or daughter's face? And so, I'm gonna come back to that a little bit later on. But thank you for being honest. And we're gonna talk about those. But to kick off tonight is, man, by far the most credible person I could think of to come out and join me. Her name is Dr. Meg Meeker, and she is, I call her America's mom and my white mother. She's my white mama, but she is so accredited in this area. She is smart, she is brilliant, And her and I together, I just love, because when we get together, she's talking about parents, I'm talking about kids. And I remember when this all came to life, it was about like 3 years ago. It was like, yo, we should get on the road and just go help parents connect better. I speak from the kids' perspective, you speak from the parent perspective, and we just really combine and we break down some barriers that are preventing healthy futures for our young people. And so, y'all, I am so excited to bring out my dear friend, my white mama. Can we clap for Dr. Meg Meeker?
Well, I am so proud of Anthony, being his white mama and all. I will tell you, we're a generation apart, which is really fun, and he's very cool, and I am not. So it's kind of nice to be able to be who we are. It's great to be in Minneapolis. Welcome all you good people who go to Grace Church, and welcome to all of you who don't. It's nice to have you all here. You know, I've been practicing pediatrics a little over 30 years. I've got 4 grown kids and 5 grandkids, which is just amazing to think about. Oh, sorry. I've got 5 grown kids, including Anthony. But you know, I've seen just about everything there is to see, and I absolutely love my job. As much today as when I did many years ago when I graduated medical school, because I believe so much in parents. You know, many times people will say to me, why don't you write a book to kids, particularly to teenagers? And I said, well, first of all, teenagers don't read books. And second of all, because if I really want to impact the lives of kids, I have to get to their parents, because you're it. In your kids' lives, you're it. I would like to tell you something that you may not know, and even when I say it, you may not believe me, but I'm going to say it anyway. Every parent in this room is wired with everything you need to parent a great kid. Now you hear that and you may say, oh, no, you've not met my kids. And well, yes, I have met your kids. And you say, well, you haven't met me. You don't know my life. You don't know my story. You don't know how I've messed up. Yes, I do, because I've seen you somewhere in my 30 plus years of seeing kids and listening to kids and listening to parents. But you need to know that today, right now, sitting in your chair, you've got it. You've got it. You know, many of you came in here to feel like I was going to tell you you need to overhaul your parenting. No, you don't. You just need to tweak it a little bit. And that's my job, and that's my pleasure to be able to do for you today. What I want to talk to you about is raising emotionally healthy kids. Now, why is that important? Because we've got depression and anxiety in our kids out of control, and we've got a generation of very, very lonely kids who are really searching for meaning and value in their lives. So what is an emotionally healthy child? It's really pretty much the same as an adult. There are a lot of components to being an emotionally healthy child, but I'm only going to touch on 4 of the most important right now, because that's all we have time for. An emotionally healthy child is one who first and foremost understands his value. Understands his value. Now, we as parents can say, well, of course my child knows his value. I tell him I love him all the time, and I tell him he's a good kid, and I tell him he's a really good soccer player, or my daughter does really well at ballet, but that doesn't give them value. Their value needs to come from you, from knowing that no matter what they do, if they sit in a closet the rest of their lives, you will love them. You know, our job as parents in teaching our kids value is not necessarily to make them happy, though we think it is. But in my parents' generation, they weren't so worried about making their kids happy. And I know that my parents wanted to make us all feel valued. And my dad was a very protective father. Let me just say that, if you've ever read in my Strong Father, Strong Daughters book. But whenever I would go on a date, he would always stay up late until I came home from the date, even after I was in college. My sophomore year in college, I came home to visit for the weekend, and I went out on a date with a guy who was a senior in college who I knew. We were friends, but I didn't know him super well. So we went to this really nice restaurant, and midnight comes, and I told my dad I'd be home about 11:30, sitting there eating this lovely meal, and all of a sudden the restaurant manager comes over to me. And he said, "Excuse me, are you Meg Jones?" And I thought, well, yes. And he said, "Well, we have a Dr. Jones on the phone wondering when you are going to be coming home." Well, that was the last date I had with that guy. And I will tell you, my dad didn't think his job was to keep me happy. And he wasn't purposely trying to make me embarrassed. He didn't care. He knew he loved me and that I was value to him. And it cost me something to feel valued by my dad. It cost me embarrassment. It cost me rules that my parents had for me. But I always knew who I was. And I always knew, my parents always told me that it was good that I was alive, that I was put on here for a purpose, that every day I had a reason to get up. But a lot of our kids don't even know why they should be alive. And if they are alive, what should they do? Because they don't understand their value. Second, an emotionally healthy child knows that he is seen. He is not invisible. That people, when he walks into a room, people pay attention. His presence means something to you. You know, it's so many times now when we're looking at our cell phones, we're looking at our screens, and we're checking our email and texting and stuff. How many times do you walk by your kid and look right over their head and make them feel invisible? A lot. I've done that with my kids. But a child who is emotionally healthy knows that he is seen by his parents. He's not ignored. He's not invisible. You aren't looking past his shoulders. Third, a child who is emotionally healthy knows that he's liked. You know, we as parents learn about how we need to tell our kids love them and tell our kids that we love them and show them affection. And I go through how to boost a girl's self-esteem and what dads can do. But often we forget that kids need to know you're interested in them. Because if you're not interested in what they have to say and what they're doing and what they want and what their dreams are and what they worry about and what they're afraid of, they don't think you like them. Now, I hear parents all the time say stuff like this. "Oh, I love my kid, but I sure don't like him." You know, and I know what they're saying because the child's going through a really obnoxious period in his life. But I get nervous when I hear parents say year after year they don't like their kid. Because a child who is not liked will go outside the home and find a place where he is liked. Just like a child who doesn't feel valued will find a place they feel valued. Not where they really are liked or valued, but where they feel they are. And finally, an emotionally healthy child or adult is one who is free to feel what he feels, express those feelings in a healthy way, and understand those feelings don't need to determine his behavior. His feelings don't need to determine his behavior. And that's a critical skill we need to teach our teenagers. We start teaching it to our kids when they're in kindergarten. You know, Sally, when a boy hits, you're sitting next to a boy and he hits you and you get mad, you can't hit him back. Even though you're mad, you can't hit, you can't bite, you can't scream. But as our kids get older and the feelings are more intense, we sort of forget to teach them that their feelings don't need to determine their behavior. So a healthy, emotionally healthy child is one who feels, expresses it, and knows how to control those feelings. But in today's culture, our kids and we have some blocks to being emotionally healthy, and we have trouble and difficulty teaching our kids how to be emotionally healthy. It's hard. I will tell you, my kids, when my husband and I raised our kids, we didn't have nearly the issues and challenges that you do. We didn't have screens. I mean, just take that out of the equation and life is pretty easy. And we didn't feel that we needed to please our kids, indulge our kids, give our kids this stuff. We just raised kids. You know, when they were bad and acted up, they got punished and consequences and all that, and life went on. But life is very different now. But fundamentally, there are three things working in your life that are keeping you from parenting really well and from raising emotionally healthy kids. Number one, peer pressure. Now, when I'm talking about peer pressure, I'm talking about the pressure your kids feel to act like their friends. Now, we all think of peer pressure as this. A 16-year-old girl goes to prom with a 17-year-old boy. He pressures her into having sex, and so she does. Or we have a third-grade bully who pressures another kid in the class to stick another kid's head in the toilet, so the kid does. Okay, these are obvious examples of peer pressure, but peer pressure is a whole lot more than that. It's very insidious. It's ubiquitous. It's very subtle, and often to us and to kids, it's unconscious, subconscious. It's happening every day when your kids turn on screens. When I routinely ask a lot of the teenage girls in my practice, tell me the biggest things that you struggle with. What are the things that make your life hardest? And without skipping a beat, they say this: sex and diet. I feel pressure to have sex, even if they're 15, 16. I feel pressure to have sex because that's what everybody's supposed to do. I feel pressure to be skinny because that's what everybody's supposed to be. Where do they get those messages? Their parents don't tell them. Friends may not tell them. They absorb them from the culture around us, from television, from movies, from media, from Instagram, from Twitter. That is supposed to be who you are. That's who you are supposed to be. Be it. And if you are not that, you don't have any value. Peer pressure is enormous in kids. But peer pressure influences our kids and my grandkids too to change their behavior because they believe their peers won't like them or they won't fit in. That's why a young girl will walk through a grocery store, check out, see Vanity Fair or Cosmo or some other magazines on the shelf, take a glance at this woman who is physiologically impossibly built, and they will look at her and go, ooh, I better not eat that candy bar. Ooh, I better not eat supper tonight. Ooh, just like that, peer pressure sets in because they feel they need to be other than they are so that they will fit in and friends will like them. They can be molded into this. Peer pressure arises because kids respond to peer pressure because they need to figure out who they are, where they fit in, are they valued, and are they liked? And those are all things they should be getting from home. I want to stop and say one thing too. If you look back at the 4 things that I listed that make for an emotionally healthy child, look at what I didn't put in there. I didn't put in there how many sports your kids need to do, how much money you need to make, how big your house needs to be, how many friends they need to have, and what college they go to. The truth of the matter is that any child can be emotionally healthy. A child who has cerebral palsy, who can't speak to you, can be emotionally healthy because they can feel valued, they can feel seen. They can feel heard if they can talk or communicate. So value and being emotionally healthy has nothing to do with a child's performance. And that's really important to recognize. Second thing that we contend with parents is something a little sticky to talk about it, but I can talk about it because I've felt it. Parent peer pressure. Parent peer pressure. Parents come into me a lot and say, oh, my daughter's turning 16. She's a sophomore, junior in high school, and I'm so worried about boys taking advantage of her, going to a party and she's going to drink. What am I going to do? How am I going to teach her not to do all that stuff? And I say, ma'am, that's the least of your problems. The real problem you're dealing with today is the pressure you feel as a parent to parent differently from what your gut tells you to do. Parent peer pressure. You say, well, you know what? I feel strong enough to parent my way. Do you? Have you ever listened to one of your friends talk about their son who's playing 2 sports after school and singing in choir, and your kid only plays 1 sport after school? And think, am I a good enough parent here? I'll never forget, I was, many years ago, our kids are kind of little, our oldest was in 6th grade, and I'm a craft nut. I love crafting. It's just what I do. And anyway, we were sitting at the table about 6 o'clock at night crafting, doing crafts. I have 3 daughters and a son. Poor kid. He knows how to knit. No, I'm just kidding. My nephew does, though. I taught him how to knit. But we're sitting at the table doing these crafts at 6 o'clock at night, and all of a sudden, I saw lights going by my living room windows, one car after another car after another car. We live in northern Michigan, where during the winter, everybody who is anybody is on a ski team. Not my kids. They were crafting. And when all these cars went by, I ran to the window and I looked out, and I knew who was driving by. I ran back into the kitchen to the craft table and said, hey, anybody want to be on the ski team this year? Boom. And I caught myself. You see, I'm not a good enough mom to sit with my kids and drink hot chocolate and craft after dinner. They need to be in another sport. They need to be skiing. And at the time, I really believed it because I was a young mom, but they never went on a ski team. It's the pressure that we feel. Have you ever looked over a friend's shoulder and asked where are your kids applying to college? Where have they gotten into? Have you ever had a son play soccer and he's just not quite as good as his friends are, and you've really wondered maybe he needs an extra soccer coach? Just to give him a leg up? Or how about, have you ever had your kid see a movie you didn't want him to see, but he did anyway? Frequent question I get, type of question I get. Parents will come in and say, Dr. Meeker, usually mom. I'm not picking on moms here, but, dads are in there too. But usually moms, because they're dealing with a lot more stuff during the day. Dr. Meeker, my 12-year-old daughter has been invited to a birthday party, and they're going to watch 50 Shades of Grey, and I don't want her to do that. Should she go to the party? I said, well, you just answered your question. What are you asking me? You just told me you don't want her to go to the party and see the movie. I know, but, she really likes these friends, and, I don't want her to feel like the odd person. I don't want her to be embarrassed. I said, no. Parent according to your gut. First of all, a 12-year-old, an 18-year-old has no business seeing 50 Shades of Grey. I don't have any business seeing it, and I won't. It's disgusting. I don't care what the plot line is, okay? It's like men saying they'd read Playboy for the articles. Women say they want to see 50 Shades of Grey because it's got a good plot line. Come on. So how about your kids and cell phones? Have you ever given your child a cell phone before you wanted to really give it to them? But you did anyway. Why? Why'd you do it anyway? Your gut was saying, no, she doesn't need a cell phone, but you gave in. Why? Parent, peer pressure. You need to be as good of a mom as your friends are. You need your kid not to be the odd person out. You need to this and this and this. That's parent peer pressure. And what it does is it robs us from being better parents. It robs our kids from being better kids because they're poorly parented by us. The real problem with parent peer pressure is this. This is very interesting. This is why I love my job and listening to kids. When parents are parenting according to their friends and the culture around them, they end up treating their kids like a little puppet on a marionette, on strings. Kids know it. Kids know it. They're taught what to do. They're taught how to jump through hoops. They're taught how to be better at something, to get into the best college. They're taught how to create a great portfolio so that they can grow up and be a great person, earn a lot of money, have kids, and start the whole cycle all over again. Kids see right through that. And when they feel that you are parenting not from your heart, but according to what's around you, they feel unseen. Because you're not parenting your kid. You're parenting a kid that you want to have. And that makes kids feel really bad. And I usually see this around sophomore year in high school. Kids will come in to me and they'll be on, a junior Olympic ski team, or they'll be, an honors, society or something their parents push them to do. And they, around sophomore year, they go, I'm done. I hate what I'm doing. My parents are making me do it anyway. I'm done. And the sad thing is, those kids never go back to what they were doing before because they've been a puppet. They've been invisible to their parents. They are not emotionally healthy. And then finally, we have personal pressure. Personal pressure. The feeling in our homes that life is out of control. I've been there. That everybody in the house is barking at each other, biting at each other, slamming doors, being irritable, never being together, never doing anything, never eating any dinner. Life at home is just chaotic and not a very fun place to be. And the reason we get to this point is because we believe, as mothers and fathers, there's a very long list in our heads of extremely important things that we need to do today. And if we don't do them today, our kids are going to lose out. And everybody's list is a little bit different. We're performers to raise performers. We need to work more hours than we want to, even though it takes a toll on our mental and physical health, because we got to get our kids a lot of stuff and we got to buy them opportunities. We need to give and to be something that we really were not meant to be. And the problem is we get anxious, we get depressed, we can't pay attention, we can't focus, we have difficulty with friendships, marriages are on fire and there's a breakup right around the corner because everybody's exhausted. And a lot of the reason that everybody's exhausted, because you're running your kids around too much. And you don't need to do that. Guess what? They don't want to be run around any more than you want to run them around. They'd like to be home. But here's what happens in a chaotic, stress-filled home. When your life is filled with too much stress, guess what happens to your kids? Emotionally, they shut down. Why? Because a stressed parent or parents are sucking all the emotional air out of the room. And there's no place left for the kids to feel or express their feelings. Kids who are exhausted and who are living with tension and anger in the home feel miserable, but they also feel they cannot deal with that misery. There's no place for them to go and be heard. Any of you who grew up in abusive homes know exactly what I'm talking about. There was no place for you. There was no place for you to feel or to think or to act. Don't let that happen to your kids. You know the old adage, if mom's happy, everyone's happy? It is true. But I would put if mom and dad are happy, kids are happy. Special note I want to make to divorced parents. And I know there are many of you, and I'm sorry you've been through a very painful time. Often, but not always, in the midst of a divorce, there's anger that is between the ex-spouses. And often what happens is each parent can be consumed with their hurt and their anger. And they spit fire back and forth, and the child's standing in the middle. And what happens in a situation like that is the child becomes invisible. And many times divorced parents will say to me, oh, my kid's doing so great. I say, well, how do you know? Well, because they're just acting fine. That's not necessarily a sign that they're doing great. So if you are divorced, the stress on you and your kids is amplified tenfold from a non-divorced household. And the toll it will take on your kids is that they won't feel the freedom to feel. They will feel invisible. So pay attention to that and don't let your kids feel unseen. 2 more things I need to hit on before we get to the good news. I know you're feeling a little depressed by now. I'm gonna push down a little more, then we're gonna turn the corner, okay? I have to tell the bad news before I tell the good news. So bad news, 2 more points. I need to talk about social media because it's on the minds of everybody who has a daughter. Boys aren't on social media as much as girls are. But there's one reason that girls are all over social media, and think about it. It makes them feel valued. It makes them feel seen. It makes them feel heard. It makes them feel that they have a place in the world and they can express their feelings. Now, you and I all know that this is false, but that's how they feel, and that's what they're after when they go onto social media. So I get it. It's a natural impulse. And they're going to these places to find all these things, to find emotional health. The problem is it doesn't deliver. And what they do then is they go back and they spend more time at it, and more time at it, and more time at it, because they're just waiting for it to work. So don't let your kids get in that situation. Give them what they need at home, and they will be beautifully buffered from the bad impact of social media. But many parents say to me, come on, my daughter's mature. She can handle social media. She knows better. She is not that interested in it. She knows how it's bad. No. She doesn't know how bad it is for her because she's a kid, even if she's 18. And second of all, no child, no kid, no teenager, no young adult even can manage their phones. They cannot manage their phone. It's called brain cells, gray matter. They don't have enough of adult thinking to know how to manage social media. So why is this such a big deal? We're getting a lot of research coming out that's phenomenal. In 2017, a study came out studying 500,000 girls, 8th through 12th grade. And they noticed, the study came out in 2017, that between the time of 2010 and 2015, 5 years, the rate of depression in girls rose 30%. There is a very clear, undeniable link between depression in girls and the amount of time they spend on social media. Also, what's even more frightening about that study is that they found between the same time, girls who are on social media had a 65% increase in suicide. Now, it's hard for us to believe because these are just screens and these are just kids, but it's true. If you have a girl on social media, you better see everything that her eyes see. Everything. And if she won't let you see it all, take the phone away. Also, smartphones were introduced in 2007. And by 2015, 92% of all teenagers had a smartphone. But if we look at the rise in depression in girls in particular, it correlates with the use and the popularity of smartphones. Now, we don't know the cause and effect for sure, but boy, oh boy, it's quite a coincidence that when smartphone sales went up, depression and suicide in girls went up. I need to talk about video games and boys. Some of your dads are gonna hate this because you sit and play video games with your boys. Well, if you're doing that, I hope you're not playing Grand Theft Auto and Killzone and all that kind of a thing. I get it. Games are fun, and it really can be fun. And there's some really good games out there, but there's some horrible games out there. The research shows, and this is pretty amazing, one researcher reviewed 22 excellent studies on the effects of video games on boys. And they found that playing video games not only changes the way your brain performs, it changes their brain anatomically. It makes the brain develop differently. There's a part of the brain called the hippocampus. And this is where visual and spatial relationships are formed. And they found in some men who agreed to participate in the study that after playing video games, the right hippocampus was larger than in men and boys who didn't play. Now, that's not all bad if you're looking at that, because having a larger area of your brain for visual and spatial relationships can be a beneficial thing. But it also tells us, because teenage kids' brains are being wired during the teen years, that the same can happen in a bad side. They also found, they had another study where 100 men, young men, agreed to participate and play games like Call of Duty, Killzone, Borderlands 2, never heard of it, for 90 hours. And the result was, and they did brain scans on them, that the caudate nucleus, the part that's responsible for habit formation and quick response, shrank. The gray matter there shrank. Now, the white matter is where the nerves are. The gray matter is the brain. These young kids' brains shrank, and it was visible on an MRI. And that is really terrifying when you think of an 8-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 15-year-old. This was a study on older men, like 20, 25. Not young kids whose brains have tremendous neuroplasticity and shaping and being formed and impressions. It's absolutely incredible what the brain does during the teen years. So, now that I've depressed everyone in here, because I imagine everyone either has a daughter or a son or both, and you're panicking right now, let me tell you the good news. You need to know this hard stuff. You need to know it. What can you do? What can you do? I told you, I don't want you to overhaul your parenting. You don't need to overhaul your parenting. You just need to move it a little bit. Every parent can embrace the reality today that you are wired with everything you need to change the course of your child's future and relationship with you. You can change a child who is snarly and snarky and argumentative and hiding in his room to one who is emotionally healthy. It's not going to happen in a month, but you can do that because God gave you everything you need to do that. You don't need to become somebody else or be like your neighbor or become a psychologist. You just need to be you, and you need to start parenting from you, not from everybody else. You've got it. You also need to understand that when it comes to influencing a child's behaviors and feelings, you are it, period. You know, now, does social media and video games and everything influence our kids? Yes, it changes their brain function and structure. Guess what you do? That pales in comparison to what you can do. You shape your child's identity. You give them a solid foundation to live their life in. You teach that child that life is worth living because he is your son and she is your daughter. You give your child a sense that they can wake up in the morning and contribute something. They are likable. You will see them. They're not invisible. And doing that raises your child so high and their self-esteem soars. And you know, even that time in the restaurant when I was paged by my dad, as horrible as it felt, I walked out of the restaurant embarrassed and all this. I felt so valued. And that feeling has never left me. And my father passed away 6 years ago. I still feel valuable to him. I will tell you that recently I was at a friend's funeral. He died too young and left 2 adult children. And one of the adult children, his son, stood up and talked about his dad. And it was one of the most beautiful presentations I'd ever heard. And he got up and he talked about the times that he spent with his dad. And he talked about how simple his dad lived. And he said how his dad would never buy new clothes. He didn't even own a cell phone. He was in his 60s. He said his dad just rejected that because he wanted life simple and he wanted to spend time just together. And he said, you know, my dad made me who I am because of the time that we spent together hunting and fishing. Is that okay to talk about in this part of the country? Okay. Some places, golfing and having dinner together and walking through the woods. And he said, as my dad lived, he became part of me. And he made me feel so good about being a man. And he said, and now what I want to do, he said, many people at a funeral talk about the past and how great their father and mother was. I want to talk about the future. Because what I want to do as his son is to bring out the best of him and me forward. I want to live the part of my dad that is in me, and I want to express it through my life. Will your kids say that about you? Or will they say, you know, my parents were really good. They took me to a lot of soccer games. They let me do sleepovers. They gave me a cell phone when I was 8. I don't know what they were thinking, but they did it anyway. You know, that's one question you never want a 25-year-old ask is, Mom and Dad, what were you thinking? Then you know you made a mistake as a parent. But you know, it's really important to think, what will our kids say at our funeral? I'll guarantee you the stuff they won't talk about. It's the money you spent, how you paid for college tuition or didn't pay for college tuition, what you gave them, computers, opportunities, stuff like this. They will talk about time with you. And if they had a pained life with you, in bitterness, they will talk about the time they didn't have with you because you're busy, or you're looking at a screen, or you're working too much, or you were worried too much, or you were fighting with your ex-spouse too much. What they want to talk about, what's precious to them, is you imparting yourself into them, and that's what makes them great people. Next thing that you need to do is take a stand against peer pressure that you feel. You know, many people say, I had a mother say this to me this week. You know what? Here's the deal, Dr. Meeker. My 2 daughters are on social media. My son is on his internet all the time. And after dinner, everybody just goes to their own room and does their own thing. And I don't like it, but there's nothing I can do about it. That's the way life is. That moment, I want to stand up and scream. But she's a really nice lady, and I know her. She's a friend of mine, so I didn't. But I wanted to say, why is that the way life is? Why are your children separating from everybody and living isolated in their own rooms? Why do they have their own room? I mean, the kids don't always need their own room. They can sleep together. But you see, she just accepted that that's the way life is. She caved to peer pressure. She didn't like it, but she did it because that's what her friends did, and that's the way life is today. End of sentence. How sad, because now her kids will suffer. Many of you are worried about taking screens away from your kids, and I understand that. So I want to tell you how mean of a mother I am. First of all, we live in a fairly small town, and I used to go to all the schools around town and talk to all the teenagers about sex. Now, if you were my kid and you were a teenager, that was not fun. I embarrassed the heck out of them, but I didn't care because this is stuff people needed to know. But when it came to electronics, I didn't have the pressures that you do, but I did have pressures. My son, when he was 14, insisted he needed an Xbox or whatever it is to play video games. For a month, we had a knockdown drag out. I said it's not going to happen, so he just figured if he got madder and more violent, I would change my mind. What do kids know? I just got more resolute in what I was trying to tell him. So after this was all over and he realized I wasn't going to budge, okay, he went through high school and he said, oh, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to my friend's house and I'm going to play whatever I want to do. Well, not in my house. I'm not going to sanction it. It's your brain. Got through high school, was going off to college, 18 years old, and he looked at me with this glint in his eye and he said, Mom, I bought an Xbox, and I'm going to take it to college with me. And I said, okay, you're a man, but I'm paying your tuition. Dad and I are paying your tuition. And if your grades aren't very good the first year, we're not going to pay your tuition anymore. That's on you. And he went his first year, he did pretty well. And then he came home from school, and he said, Mom, I just made $250. I said, how'd you make that money? I sold my Xbox. I said, what happened? He said, Mom, when I went to school and I saw all the guys in my dorm sitting in a dark room hour after hour after hour playing video games, it kind of made me sick. It was a beautiful day out. Their parents are paying all this money. What were they doing? And then he said something remarkable. Thank you, Mom, for not allowing me to play video games when I was younger. You know, I will tell you, the fight and everything that your kids put up when they're 14, 15, 16, 17, do the right thing, and I promise you, there will be a day, and it'll be sooner than you think, where they will say thank you. It's funny, we were pretty strict about screens, and now my daughter has 3 kids. She's stricter than I am because she recognizes how good it was for her. Fourth, you need to find ways to decrease the amount of pressure that you feel. Now, this is easy to say, but the same gentleman that talked to at his father's funeral talked about a turning point in their relationship. His father was a CEO of a very profitable company, was never home, never saw the kids. Parents were on the verge of divorce, and his dad said, I quit. I quit. I walk away from my job as CEO, and I'm going to drive a bus. Going to drive a bus in town. And that he did till the day he died. And he said, when my father stepped out of that position, he said, something changed in our house. My parents stopped fighting. No, we didn't have much money, but we didn't need that much money. We still hunted, we still fished, we still did everything together. And that's when my relationship with my dad got really good. Do whatever you can to alleviate the stress in your home. Depression, anxiety, whatever. Get help, deal with it. 5, take charge of the screens in your home. And I know you say, no, there's no way we can do it. Yes, there are. Start with some little baby steps. Start with baby steps. Start by saying 1 hour every night or 1 hour one night a week, we're going to have a screen-free time. From 6 to 7, from 7 to 8, from 8 to 9. And that means for everybody in the household, including me and Dad, because parents got to do this too, all phones, all computers are off. You say, well, no, my kid has homework to do. Well, maybe he can be a little more efficient because, you know, when kids are on a laptop for an hour, they're probably doing homework about half of that time. That I know because that's what they tell me. Anyway, so do what you can to start to bring it under control, and most importantly, to let your kids know you're in charge of it. They don't own their phones. I don't care if they paid money for them. You still own them because they're under your roof. You own the phone, and you own the laptop, and you own everything else, the iPad, whatever it is. So start to rein it in very gently and then increase. Have all devices plugged in at night in the kitchen. Parents say, oh, but my daughter needs an alarm to wake her up. Buy her an alarm clock. Put the phone in the kitchen. You can't imagine the sleep difficulties I see in teenagers because of the phones, for many reasons. And it makes them anxious. They're waiting for something, for somebody to tell them something or call. It just makes them anxious. They're gonna give you a lot of pushback. They're gonna fight and scream. Oh well, all phones and devices in the kitchen when you go to bed, yours included. They will be thrilled that you're gonna put your phone down. As a matter of fact, some parents have more difficulty putting their phone down than kids do. Make everyone in the family follow the same rules. It's got to include you. No screens in bedrooms. Your kids can't sleep. And give an alternative to screens when you take screens away from your kids. Now, this sounds corny and goofy, but try it anyway. Say to your kids, I know it's boring this whole next hour, but why don't we go out and we'll kick a soccer ball around? Or why don't we play cards? Or why don't we play a board game? Or why don't we go for a walk? And at first, your kids are going to snicker and they're going to be nasty, but just wait to see what happens. Over time, they will start to really like that. They'll start to really like the quiet pace that you have given them in your home. As I said earlier, many of you probably walked in these doors feeling like you really needed to overhaul your parenting and that I needed to tell you what to do so you could go out, completely change your life 180 degrees. You don't need to do that. You're great parents because you're here. Maybe what you need to do is just shift your parenting 5 or 10 degrees, and your home will go from a place of chaos and distress to quiet and calm and joy. I've seen it over and over and over. You don't need to change your personality. You just need to change some of the things that you're doing. And why do I know that you will be successful? Because I know that God has equipped you with every piece of wiring you need to do a great job with your son or daughter. Start listening to your wiring. Pay attention. What is your gut telling you to do in any situation? If your gut is saying, don't let my daughter watch that movie, or no, she's not ready for a cell phone, or I don't want my son to hang with those kids, or I don't want my son to play that game, act on it. Act on it. You're right, because God gave you the wiring. So start parenting from your personality, your values, your posture, your beliefs. And that's when life will start to get really, really great at home with your kids. You don't need an overhaul. You got the wiring. Sometimes all you need is somebody to come along with a little spark and zap that wiring, and you're off and running. And I hope that tonight that's what you get. You just get a little spark, and you walk out of the doors going, I know I can do this. I got this. God bless you all. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
All right, we had some fun. You guys feel like you get your second win during the break there? Holding the bladders too long? Well, we are going to do something that we have never done at a live event like this before, and that is a live Q&A right here with Anthony and Dr. Meg. And we have some great questions. Our team vetted them. They picked their favorites, and we're going to have them come back out. So I need y'all to give them a round of applause. Anthony and Dr. Meg, where are you at? Where are they coming from? They're somewhere. There they are. All right. This is fun. We had a good time in our VIP Q&A. We had some really great questions, and so I'm hoping that we can keep it going. How y'all feeling? You meet some nice folks out there?
Oh,
they're so nice.
This is so fun.
So nice.
Yes,
great people here in Minnesota.
Yes.
We're heading to Sacramento. We'll see if they're as nice over there. We don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to start off with this one from Michael. This is a great question. What's the best way to motivate your kids when they don't want to do anything?
Every parent's question. I would ask, how old is the child, and is it male or female? Is Michael here?
You want to stand up for us?
Oh, maybe he left.
Oh, he's
There you
back
are.
there. How old? Yell it out.
15 and 17.
Boys or girls?
Girls.
Oh, okay. No, the reason I say that is because it's classic for 15 and 16, 17-year-old boys not to want to do anything.
Wait a minute, hold up.
Well, sorry. But you know, a lot of them are just not that motivated, so they need to wait. As far as girls go, I guess what I would do is basically two ways to motivate kids. You can either punish or reward. And I always try reward first. You know, if you do this, then this is what's going to happen. But sometimes that doesn't help. It depends on what the thing is that you want to motivate that you want to motivate them to do. If it's something like schoolwork or doing something that's very important to you, then you need to really sort of say, you need to do this or else. The other thing you can do is say, this is what our family does. So you need to kind of lead by example. For instance, you know, when our kids are growing up, the way we speak was very important. We didn't let our kids use certain words, certain tone of voice. And so, but we said that's a family issue. We all talk that way. So we motivated our kids by doing it ourselves. So I think the thing to do is, how important is it to you, and do you think should it be that to them to do what you want them to do? And if rewards don't work, then I would just say, look, in our family, this is what you got to do, and if you don't do it, if your grades don't go up, then, you know, you can't go out for a couple of weeks, whatever, with friends.
Dr. Meg, can we rewind like 15 years ago and you meet with my dad?
Yeah.
There was no reward in my house. It was, boy, I'm the daddy, and this is what you're gonna do. And that was my motivation, because I was scared to see my daddies. But no, seriously, I agree with what Dr. Meg is saying. But I do believe sometimes parents, you have to be like, hey, I am the parent. I'm not your friend. And if you're gonna live in my house, I'm gonna teach you and prepare you for the next phase. And I'm just helping you out. This is gonna benefit you. So I always have a good educated conversation. I've learned with middle school and high school students, if you talk to them a little bit older, they mature better and they actually enjoy that. And so just have that conversation.
Talk to them as though you expect them to do well. You know, I will tell you, kids will not listen to a parent they don't respect.
That's true.
And when you respect a parent, there's got to be a little bit of fear there. Not afraid that they're going to hurt you,
I
but
was
afraid,
scared of my daddy. Lord have mercy.
Well, you know, did your dad call restaurants?
Did he call restaurants?
When you were on a date? No, you didn't listen to my talk.
No,
obviously.
my dad took me to prom. That's why I was scared of him.
Yeah, but I think that, and I will say this generation of parents seems very fearful of exerting authority, but you can't raise great kids without authority, and that means your kids have to really respect you and toe the line. And I think that's a lot of what Dave teaches too, is that, you know, your kids earn money. Your kids get an allowance by working. And so I'm big on having kids work and sort of being in charge of your home.
That is a great segue into our next question from Kevin. We have 4 kids. How do you budget for allowance without breaking the bank?
How do you budget for an allowance without breaking the bank? I don't agree in the word allowance. I love the word commission, because I believe the allowance sets up a kid's mind to where, hey, because I did this, you owe me this. When you start teaching our young people, hey, if you work, you get paid. If you don't work, you do not get paid. If you clean up the kitchen, you do not get paid. That's your responsibility to help out around this house, okay? Now, if you go out there and you wash the car, if you go out there and you cut the grass, then yes, you can get paid for that. So how do we motivate them and how do we get them inspired? We got to start teaching them how to do things and how to work for money. Because when they graduate high school and they go out into the real world, just because they made up their bed, they're not going to get a check from their job. Okay? They got to leave the house. They got to leave and go work, which is why we came up with the Teen Entrepreneur Toolbox Kit, because we wanted to start teaching kids as early as middle school the power of working and how important it is to really start pushing yourself to do something greater outside of the house. So get rid of the word allowance and add the word commission to your vocabulary.
Great question. This one comes from Deborah. Help, single mom with no support from my kid's dad. How do I teach and model without putting their dad down? She has some examples: Xbox at dad's, financial instability, emotions aren't allowed. How does she go about this with no support from the kid's dad? And how does she teach and model back?
Well, it's very important. I always tell single moms, I would tell single dads the same thing. You cannot be 2 people. You can only be a really good one person. So if you're a single dad, don't try to be mom and dad. Single mom, don't try to be dad and mom. So first of all, take that stress off your plate, because usually that's what I see. When there's a discordance between parenting in one home compared to the other home, there usually is a parent who wants to be the good guy, the play mom, who wants the kids to love being there and always want to come there. But that wreaks havoc on the kids, and then it makes the other parent look like a mean person. You can't change unless you can negotiate with your ex-spouse, your ex-husband. You can't change his behavior. You know, you can sit down at the table and say, what are the 3 most important things that you want me to do with our kids? And I will honor those if I can say what the 3 most important things to me are, and you honor those. That's a great negotiating tool. But if you can't get through to the other spouse, all you can do is say, in our home, I believe that it is right to this. And I believe that, and we're going to do that because I'm the mother. And if you're a single mom, you have to be even more assertive and stronger, not mean, but more. You need to really be the authority in the home, or your kids will just run over you. And I will say this, your kids during your teen years may act up a lot because they're going to, you this and you that, and you're mean and dad's nice. Okay, but you know, this is the way we do it. So don't renege on what you're doing. Take the high road always, and I promise when your kids are in their early 20s or mid-20s, they'll come back to you, because in their gut they'll know this is the best way to live. This is the good thing. So just take the high road. Don't criticize dad. If kids say, well, you know, dad likes to stay up till 2 a.m. Well, you know what? That's dad. That's dad's rules. Doesn't make him good or bad, so don't talk negatively about him. Really important, or your kids will be alienated from you. But, you know, just say, you know, honey, that's just what dad does. We're just different. and leave it at that.
Great answer. All right, this one comes in from Shauna. Do you think kids should help pay for their own college by working, not loans, even if the parents can afford it, just so they have some skin in the game to take it more serious?
Yes! What? I get passionate about that. I'm sorry. I scared some of y'all right over here. Yes, that is something I'm very, very, very passionate about. Like I told you earlier before the break, my team and I are writing a book around this area because I'm sick and tired of what the student loans are doing to our kids. But to answer this question directly, yes, your child needs to have some sweat equity. And I mean, they need to be sweating bullets when it comes to their education. Because in the research that I've but the research that I've studied and seen, kids who actually work hard, they get up every single day, they're looking up grants and scholarships, they have a job, they're putting in sweat equity, those are the ones who complete school. The ones who just get it fed to them are the ones like, it's all good. My mom and dad took out student loans. I don't need to complete it. No. My kids, I don't care if I'm a millionaire. 2 things that I'm not going to pay 100% for. Well, a lot of things, but here are 2 of them. The number 1 thing is I'm not paying for 100% of their college education. I'm not. I may pay for 50, 60% of it. Second thing is I'm not paying for 100% of their car. I'm only paying for 25% of their car. Because when your kid feels as if this is mine, this education is, I worked hard for this, they're gonna work even harder to complete it. When they have that car and 75% of it came from them, they're gonna wash that car every day 2 times a day. And so I believe that every kid, especially a high school student, should have some form of sweat equity inside of the things. And parents, I'm gonna say this, we're not here to talk about money, but do not sacrifice your retirement for their education. It is 100%. Y'all can clap for that. Yeah, go ahead. Some of y'all parents looking at me like, really? Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Because for sure, you're gonna retire. But if your kid is like me, he may or she may not complete school. Do not sacrifice your well-being and your spouse's well-being over a possibility. Do not do it. So yes, I'm gonna be quiet because I'm coming up later on.
You don't want to let the cat out of the bag.
No, I don't.
Okay, all right. This one comes in from Steve. What do I do with an entitled teenager?
With an entitled teenager, you say, whoops, I made some mistakes. Whoa, that's a tough one. Here's what I would do. I would first do some soul searching in yourself and maybe in your spouses and say, what did we do? Why did we do this? Why did we feel that we needed to give this child everything, to make this child the center of the home, and do this dance around the child to make them feel that they had a right to everything that we gave them? So what was going on in me? Because often you'll find that you feel there's a need in you to make up for something, to get the kid to depend on you, whatever. And so that's the most important thing, to kind of break that cycle. The second thing is, and I'm like Anthony, I'm a firm believer in work as well. You have an entitled child, they need to get a job, period. My parents, I didn't need to work in high school, but my parents had me work, made me work. And it was one of the best things for me, and it really taught me so many life lessons. So I would sort of say, what got you into that situation in the first place? Don't be mad at your kid because he's entitled. You indulged him. Yeah. I mean, okay, you did it, but it's over, so change course. And then the next thing is he has to have a job, or she. It doesn't have to be a full-time, doesn't have to be a spectacular job. Just gotta work somewhere, somehow, and start making some money just to understand that you have to work for what you get. It doesn't just fall onto you. Best thing you can do for an entitled kid, because if they go off to college feeling that way, they're gonna be horrible to be around. Yeah.
And I would add to that, only thing I'm going to add is be patient in the process. Because if you've raised this kid up to feel entitled, it's not going to switch overnight. Mm-hmm. Okay? And so just be patient in the process. Do not get frustrated with them, because as parents, you've played a huge role in that. So as a parent, be very patient with what you've sown into. Okay, so that's one thing I would definitely add to that. But I'm praying for y'all entitled parents.
This one comes from Malia. What's the youngest age a child should have a paying job?
A paying job?
Yeah, the youngest age a child should have a paying
As
job.
soon as they can talk. Wow, only like 1 or 2 claps over here. Okay. No, seriously. I have 3 nephews. I have 2 nephews, 1 niece, and I have 1 on the way. My sister does not want to tell the family what he or she is. So pray for me because my mama's having a heart attack. But as soon as Theo, I would never forget, because I'm the money guy in my family. They love Dave, but they love me 10 times more. And so, they come to me and say, Anthony, when should we start teaching Theo about money? And I said, man, listen, he's saying mama, he's saying daddy. The next word should be work. And so I'll never forget, it was my first year joining the team. And I bought everyone down some books, and I bought our Financial Peace Junior book. And I was sitting there reading the book to my 2-year-old nephew that really didn't understand what's going on. But now at the age of 6, all he talks about when he wakes up, if his dad says sweep, he said, oh, I'm working so I can get paid. Kids are very impressionable at their younger age. So he doesn't really understand everything, but he does understand when he is doing something, he thinks it translates to money. And so I told him to get out of the car. He said, I'm about to go to work. So as early as you possibly can. Of course, you know your limits, and we have a great, great product called Financial Peace Junior that really teaches our young people what to do and how to really understand money at their young age.
I would just want to add to that, just to affirm what Anthony is saying, but kids even as young as 4, my little granddaughter, you know how you have little coins and stuff laying around in pots in your house? And she saw some in my laundry room and she said, Mommy, can I just take this quarter? And I said, no, you can't just take that quarter. And she said, but I want it. And I have a little piggy bank. And I said, well, here's what you need to do. You need to help me fold all the laundry. Mm-hmm. And once we get this done, you can have your quarter. And so she thinks it's really fun. She really does. And she's saving up all her money. But because kids will do that. Particularly moms with a purse, they'll start digging around in there. I want this dollar. I want this. I said, no, you can't. So really, even very young, you can start and it can be fun.
And then what's going to happen is when they get older, they've created healthy habits, and this generation loves to spend, spend, spend. We're going to create a generation that loves to save, 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 because they've worked and they've saved their money in the piggy bank. And so we can create that habit early on.
Mm-hmm. All right, here's a question. How can you tell the difference between depression and moodiness in young children? I have a 5-year-old girl.
That's a great question. You want to answer?
No, you got this, Doc.
I know I got it. I just want to see what you do.
5 years old?
I'm so mean.
That's early to be.
That is young. It is young.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question. Actually, I just wrote a post on this, I think. But, we are seeing depression in younger kids. And one of the things, particularly with young teenagers or prepubertal kids, parents will pass off depression as just moodiness. They'll say, oh, well, it's normal for them to lock themselves away in their room, for the grades to go down, their clothes to change, for them to pierce everything they can find in their body, and for them to change friend groups. Well, no, it's not really normal. Here's how you tell the difference. Moodiness is your child's going along and feeling pretty good, and then all of a sudden, boom. She explodes, she cries, she's mad, and that may last a couple of days, and then it goes away, and then it comes again. So moodiness is ill temper or bad feelings that are separated by periods of usual behavior, usual happiness. Depression, on the other hand, and you can look it up because I put all the different symptoms that you look for, but depression is kind of like moodiness, but it's never relieved by periods of happiness and joy, and it lasts at least 2 weeks or longer. So depression is if your child is volatile and angry, wanting to isolate, not doing things that he or she previously enjoyed, losing weight, change in sleep patterns, change in friend patterns, acting hopeless, like, my life is over. And sometimes I find I will just ask kids, are you depressed? Do you know what depression feels like? Can you describe how you're feeling to me? And kids will use words like, helpless, I can't do anything. So you're looking for those symptoms that last for over 2 weeks, that don't have healthy, positive attitude interspersed. Moodiness is healthy, and then they act terrible, and then they're healthy, they act terrible. So that's basically the difference. If you feel your child could be depressed, but you're not sure, call your pediatrician, go in alone, talk to the pediatrician, say, this is what I'm seeing. What do you think? Then you'll talk, and then you leave, and you schedule a time for you and the child to come in, and then the pediatrician sort of probes for depression. The reason I say your pediatrician is most kids don't want to go to a counselor or psychiatrist right off the bat, but they will go to their pediatrician because that's sort of like a checkup. So we can do a lot of digging, and I would absolutely do that with a 5-year-old. And your pediatrician will really be able to guide you.
Here's one about siblings. With siblings fighting, when do you step in and stop, and how do you teach them to handle it on their own?
Don't stop. Let them knock each other out.
I'm glad you're not writing my parenting books. I'd be sued. There is a little bit of truth in there, but he's a guy. But here's the way, don't guys like to fight it out all the time?
Ladies like to fight too.
Yeah, but we don't. Yeah, but anyway, but this is what I would do. Again, it depends on the age of the child. If it's harmless, they're not hurting one another, they're not being mean to one another, let it go. There's always a pecking order in the family or among friends, and that's okay. You're not going to change that. If, however, they cross a line where they're verbally mean and abusive, and they say cruel things, or they're hurting the other person, biting, punching, that kind of a thing, then you need to step in. Also, if you find that between the two kids, one is always the victim and the other one's always the bully, then you need to treat the older kid just like you would a bully, because that's not fair. Healthy fighting between siblings, it'll teeter-totter. But if you have one who's always doing, getting into the fights and being really mean, then you need to protect the younger kid.
And I would definitely say with my siblings, after we fought and I won all the fights, no, seriously, that wasn't that funny. One thing my parents did all the time was they set us down and they really got down to the root. What was the problem? Why were you upset? What offended you? What made you upset? And I never really understand why my dad and my mom would ask us deeper and deeper and deeper questions. But it taught me to understand that it wasn't the surface thing that got them upset. It triggered something on the inside. And so that lesson at a young age taught me as a grown man right now that, hey, if I offend someone, it's not just what I said, it also triggered something else. And so the lesson was, hey, figure out what was the root so you can never touch that trigger again. And now, I have siblings, and me and my sister fight all the time, but she still loves me.
Do you and all your moms fight?
I will be dead. I have 2 black mothers. They would knock me out. Oh, no, you're my white mama. We don't fight.
And with that, would you guys help me thank Dr. Meg and Anthony ONeal? That was a lot of fun. All right, we're going to keep this event going. And our friend Anthony, he's going to keep the energy up. I know y'all are getting tired. How many people should be in bed by now? Is it like your normal bedtime? Well, you didn't have to deal with your kids for the last 3 hours, so you should be a little more awake than normal. And Anthony's going to close us out in a special way. And I love this guy's passion. I get to work with him, get to hang out and travel with him. And he is the real deal. And he is so passionate about reaching these young people and changing the trajectory of their lives. And he's going to close us out tonight in a big way. So would you help me welcome Anthony ONeal?
Thank you, George. Home stretch, let's go. Thank you. We only have 3 hours left. All right. Y'all, you guys, I'm gonna put this verse up on the screen, Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6. I'm looking at this screen, and I'm supposed to be looking at this screen. All right. He does look good, though, This scripture is absolutely amazing. I love this, and I read this scripture at least once or twice a week because I want to be this type of parent. Train up a child in the way that he should go, comma, even when he is old, he will not depart from it. when I read this scripture, and y'all, I'm not gonna preach to you tonight. I know y'all are like, oh my goodness, is he about to preach? No, I'm not gonna preach. I am a preacher. I read my Bible every single day. And I said, man, this is a perfect way to start off my portion of this evening and really send you all encouraged. You see that God trusted you with the child that you have right now. And the number one thing that he told you to do as a parent, I want you to really follow me here and focus. He said, train up your child in the way that he or she should go. Then there's something special right after go, comma. Even when he is old or she is old, he or she will not depart from it. Tonight, I really want to just focus on the first part of that, train up a child in the way that he or she should go. I want to talk about parenting before the comma. Not after the comma, but parenting before the comma. See, earlier I talked about a father that was able to save his son from committing suicide because he trained his son to the point that his son knew that his father loved him. And this is so important. The whole key thing for us tonight is not the fact, how do I become the best parent in the world? No, because you will never be a perfect parent. How do you become the best loving parent? How do we train up our children to know that we love them and that we're passionate about them and we want to see them successful? How do we become better stewards of the child God has trusted us all with? And it starts with parenting before the comma. So let's talk about this. How do we train up our kids? How do we do this? Here's the very first thing. I want you to recognize who your child is, you guys. Not who you want them to become, but who your child is. Because here's the thing. They are individually wired. The same way God wired you, he wired your son, he wired your daughter, he wired your grandchildren. They were born into this world and birthed into this world for a purpose. There is a reason why they're here. But what we have to do as parents is to really, really step back. Okay, God, how did you wire my son? How did you wire my daughter? And this is like the number one thing that I hear from kids when I'm traveling around the country. And I've had the opportunity to speak to millions of students now. And they're like, man, I just really wish my parents understood and recognized who I am. Just me. Not my siblings, but just me. I can't do what my sister can do. I can't do what my brother can do. How come we just can't recognize me? Those of you all who follow me know that I am an avid gym person. I get up every single day at about 4 o'clock. I read my word. I get some Devo in my head. Then I turn on how do I say this? I turn on the rap music. I get my mind ready because I'm about to go to the gym. I'm about to conquer the world. And when I get into that gym on this one particular day, I'm like, yeah, it's leg day. Some of y'all guys need to go to the gym on leg day. Anyways, my trainer, he comes up to me. He says, all right, Anthony, I want you to put 315 pounds on the bar. I'm like, 315? What? He was like, yeah. Then he goes up to the next guy next to me. Look at me, okay? I'm slim. Then the guy next to me weighs. Well, that'd be rude. He weighs a lot more than me. Okay? He says, hey man, put 125 on the bar. I'm like, really? He can do more than 125. He's bigger than me. He looked at me, he said, can I do my job? Do I teach you and tell you how to speak on the stage for Dave Ramsey? I was like, no. Then don't tell me how to do my job. Because Anthony, I know you. I train the both of you. I know if I put 315 pounds on his bar, this is going to hurt him. It can hurt him to the point to where he could even have to go to the hospital. You can handle this. Watch this though. What if I just trained you and said put 125 pounds on your bar? That means now I'm not pushing you and stretching you to your max. As a trainer, I have to watch, I have to recognize what you can do and what you can individually do, and I have to train you towards that. And I was like, oh. So I squatted 315 pounds. You couldn't tell me nothing after that day because I just knew I was a grown man after that. I was like, yeah. I walked around, I was going around the office, had on the real skinny jeans. Yeah, you see that right there? Yeah, squats, 300 pounds right there. So I was like, y'all think I'm playing for real. But here's the key thing, you guys. Stop comparing your children. If you have younger ones right now, as they're growing, stop comparing them. Stop expecting them to be like their siblings. Stop doing that. And here's the thing that just frustrates me a lot with parents sometimes. Every time I hear this, I'm like, okay, I get it. I'm not a parent. But you know what? Stop comparing your kids' success or failures to yourself. Stop it. Because here it is. It's not your child's job to give you self-worth. It is not your child's job to give you self-worth. This is you, okay? When we can stop expecting our kids, expecting your children to give you things they cannot give you, and we really start taking the time to really recognize who they are, we're getting closer to setting up the opportunity to connect to them. Because our number one responsibility as parents is to connect them to the ultimate source, God. And they need us to do that so they can brighten up this world. But we gotta get closer. And when we can recognize who they are and start training them up for that, you guys, that's when we are starting to get closer. Moving on to number two, which is, this is so funny. I had this one kid tell me this. I said, hey man, if you could tell your mama or daddy anything, she said, put some respect on my name. I was like, I can't tell your mama and daddy that. I can't do that. But here's number two, you guys. Respect who your child is, not who you want them to be. Respect who your child is, comma, not who you want them to be. Because here's the key thing with this one. Your kids live in different times than you lived in. They live in a total different time than what you've lived in. And here's the truth, parents. Just being real, okay? The stress your kids are going through right now is real to them. It is real. That girlfriend that she just broke up with her boyfriend, she is stressing. That boyfriend that just left his girlfriend, they're stressing. Not getting enough likes on Instagram, it is real to them. They are growing up in a different time. I grew up, there was no MySpace, was no Facebook. We had dial-up AOL. Mom and dad yelling from the back, get off the internet. You're hogging up my phone line. Different times. I remember when the first cell phone was the size of my head. Kids now can put their cell phones in the front pocket. You don't even know what it is. Times are different. And they're experiencing different things. But what I love about it, there's nothing new up underneath the sun for God. There's nothing new at all. True story. When I was pastoring in Jacksonville, Florida, I had the opportunity to pastor an amazing flock of young people. We would see about 5,000 students throughout the week, and it was just amazing. They called me PA, short for Pastor Anthony. And because of my foolishness and how I made some mistakes, I started my nonprofit and I included it inside of my church called Young People Succeeding, YPS. And so inside that nonprofit, I taught kids how to go to college debt-free. I taught them, hey, 1 hour every single day, you're gonna look up grants and scholarships. You're gonna stay away from credit cards. You're gonna really start a healthy life. And so all of my kids who signed up for that particular program was just faithful with that. On this one particular night, one of my students had called me. It was about like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And you could tell I have an old spirit because I was in the bed at 9 o'clock every night. And so my phone was ringing. The first ring after 9 o'clock, I let it ring. Second ring, I let it ring. The third ring, I get upset and I still let it ring. The fourth ring, I'm like, okay, I better pick this phone up because as a youth pastor, there is no 8 to 5, you're pastoring 24/7. So I pick up the phone and this young lady and her mom, and she's crying. I was like, what's wrong? So when you call me, okay, at 10 o'clock at night, and the first thing that I hear at 10 o'clock at night as a youth pastor, I was pastoring in the hood. I'm jumping out of the bed. I'm putting my clothes. I'm like, okay, who just got shot? I'm getting ready. I'm panicking. And she's crying. And I'm like, okay, darling, what's going on? Calm down. Where is your mom? I'm right here. So my whole mind just flips. Okay, why is the daughter crying, but mama is cool? She even sounds kind of upset that she's on the phone. And I say, well, darling, what's wrong? And she was like, her mom says, tell the man what's wrong. So I'm already dressed. I'm going to the car. I'm gonna open up the car door. And I get inside the car. I said, where do I need to go? She says, go? You ain't go nowhere. Oh my gosh. I almost got upset. I said, okay, if I'm going nowhere, why am I on the phone at 10 o'clock at night? She says, well, PA, I just got my college acceptance letter and her mama says, tell the boy why we up this late. And she says, well, I got accepted to Yale. And I'm sitting there like, and she was like, but they only gave me a 25% scholarship. And I'm like, okay, cool. You raised $88,000 in your scholarships over the last 4 years. Well, what's the problem? That's still not enough money. And I'm like, okay, I really don't care right now. But that's not it. I was like, oh my gosh. What'd you do, get accepted to Harvard too? And she goes on and tells me that she got an acceptance to Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee. They gave her a full 100% ride. And she's like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, and I lost it. What do you mean? It's 10 o'clock at night, 25% scholarship, 100% ride, take your behind to Fisk, good night. And I hung up the phone. A faithful student. I didn't see her for like a month. I go to the school and I'm walking and I see her and I'm walking in and she sees me walking towards her and she says, and walks away. Now, I'm a grown man at this time. I'm like, oh no, she didn't. And I walk behind her. She goes to sit down at her lunch table. I'm like, darling, what's wrong? Did you just really roll your eyes at me? And she was like, I did. I said, oh, you're lucky I'm not your daddy. Lord, I'm in the school system. I'm a pastor. I can go to jail. What's wrong? She says, watch this. You weren't there for me when I really needed you. My mama brushed me off. My grandmama brushed me off. My daddy brushed me off. I just knew that my youth pastor would not brush me off. You weren't there when I really needed you. That was real to me. That was stressful for me. Everyone told me if you can go to Yale, you will be the best. But you brushed me off. You weren't there for me. And you guys, and immediately, while she was talking, that hit me hard. That a young lady in front of me at 17 years old, who's never been 17 before, who's never ever received a college acceptance letter, who's never done anything, has said, you know what? This was stressful to me, and I needed you. Right then and there, I apologized. I said, I'm sorry. You're right, I wasn't there. Let's talk. I asked her, what's going on? What are you thinking? What should you do? And I just started asking questions. Make a long story short, she took her behind to Fisk University. She graduated a couple of years ago. I went to it. It was amazing because I live there. And so it's just amazing. But here's the key thing, you guys. I want you to let your kids live their life. Let them live their life. It is theirs. It's not yours. You're there to guide them. You're there to give them wisdom. You're there to encourage them, but it is their life. There's this one school that books me every single year. For the last 5 years that I've been with Ramsey Solutions, they book me every year. And they've literally called it like the Anthony ONeal only event. I show up, I spend 3 hours with these kids, then they do life stuff, they teach our curriculum, they buy my books, they bring me up there every single year. And so these seniors, they look forward to seeing me. So this one girl comes up to me after the session and she starts crying. And I'm like, what's wrong? She says, I want to go to cosmetology school and own my own hair salon, but my mom and dad says there's no money in doing hair. They want me to be a doctor. And I had to really watch myself because I don't want to offend parents like you all, but I said, well, clearly your parents are uneducated. Because ladies run the world, and the hair, who said preach? The hair industry, every single year, makes $838 billion. You're telling me there's no money in that, mama, daddy? Look, listen here, daughter. Just go into it, own hair salons. Bring back just 1% of that billion. We will be all right. And I told her, I said, you know what? What I want you to do, I want you to go home and educate yourself. Study some of the top hair, study some of the top hair salons and hair people. I gave her the name of Beyonce's hairstylist. Do y'all know that Beyonce's hairstylist, every time she touches Beyonce's hair, she makes $15,000? And her mama said, there's no hair. What? There is. But the whole point is not really about the hair. It's not about the money. It's about helping your kids fulfill their dream, not your dream. And I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna say this with all respect, because I love you as parents, and I'm here to help you connect this, okay? It is not your child's responsibility to fulfill your unaccomplished dreams. It is your child's responsibility to fulfill what they were born to do. So if there are some dreams that you did not have the opportunity to fulfill, do not force it onto your child. Help them do what maybe you didn't have the opportunity to do, but help them get closer to connecting and turning on this light so they can fulfill their dreams, because their dreams can help and change this world. Number 3, you got to reaffirm. I need you to reaffirm that you love and that you accept them for who they are. Now listen, I'm not saying that you're going to accept some of their issues, that you're going to accept some of their lifestyles, but I'm talking about the individual. You love them. They need to hear from their parents that you love them, no matter what's going on in their life, no matter what they're struggling with, no matter what their issues are, no matter what their flaws are, you love them. You don't have to like their choices, but you need to be the number one affirmer in your child's life. Dr. Meg hit on this earlier, and she said that, social media is really strong in this culture. On average, kids will spend 2 to 5 hours a day on social media. Why are they spending this much time on social media? Because they want the hearts. Isn't it funny when Instagram came out, you hit the like button. And then all of a sudden, Facebook buys them, and Facebook understands it's not about being liked. People want to feel loved. People want to feel valued. So they change their algorithms. They say, you know what? Don't hit the like button, hit the heart button. Because when people feel loved, they respond differently. So kids are going to social media so that they can get hearts, so that they can get love that they're not feeling from home. That is unacceptable in today's day and time. There's no way in the world I'm going to have a daughter and she goes to social media because her father, is not loving her. I'm going to be the number one man that makes her feel loved. The number one. I don't care what knucklehead comes up to my son. I don't mean to be rude because some of y'all have sons and I'm a son. I don't care who comes up to my daughter. He could say, I love you. She's going to say, not as much as my daddy. This guy can come up to her and say, you know what? I'm going to take you all over the world. Well, where are we going? Because my dad and mom took me everywhere. I mean, I've been to London, Africa, Israel. Where are we going? California? You have to be the number one affirmer in their life. Not anyone else. At their football games, you're the number one cheerleader. At their basketball games, you're the number one cheerleader. At the church service and they're singing in the choir because you forced them there, you better be the number one affirmer. So a lot of people say, how do I do this? How do I show affirmation? And here's why, because I really want to give you some key things to really help you connect. We're trying to get there. We're trying to light them up. How do I do this? Here's the very, very first thing on affirmation. How you talk, okay? How you talk. Instead of talking at them, you guys talk with them. Ask questions. Ask questions. Ask questions. Don't tell them what to do. Ask questions and listen and reflect back on what you heard from them. Talk to them about real stuff. And let me be honest with you. Talk about the stuff that is scary. Talk about the stuff that is uncomfortable. My mom and dad is here. I love my mama. My father had just lost his mother, my grandmother, and we're riding down to South Carolina with my mom. And I think I'm like in high school. And my mom asked me a very straightforward question. Because when you have this conversation, do not think you're going to be the only one uncomfortable. Both of them are. My mama straight up just asked me, son, what you think about sex? And I'm like, how do I answer this question? Like, we're going down to a funeral and we're talking about sex? But it was very uncomfortable. But the philosophy was, my mom was like, I'm going to ask my son who's up underneath my roof now and have the conversation with him now so the world doesn't teach my son about sex. I don't want my son going out asking the wrong person and he's learning the wrong thing. So you have to ask. Some of you all are probably saying, you know what? What do I ask? How do I have this conversation? Because, oh my goodness, I don't know. And you know what? I spent some time. There's a lot of tough questions as a youth pastor that I had to ask some kids. Questions that made me feel very uncomfortable. Questions that I had to have the parent there or I had to have somebody else in the room with them because I didn't want to go the wrong way. And I really want to help you connect and illuminate them so they can help the entire world. So my team and I, we're gonna put this picture up for you. We came up with 25 questions that every parent should ask their kid. You guys, I talk about, hey, here are the questions, but before you do it, I tell you, you need to pray. Because you need to be prepared for the answers that you're going to get. Here are some of the questions that some of their peers are going to be asking them. But the very first question and the hard questions need to come from their parents. So I want you to text in. Text Anthony to 33789. It's free, absolutely free. We give you the guidelines. We tell you to take them out to Pizza Hut, take them out somewhere that they really love, put them in a very comfortable environment. But the key thing you're gonna learn from this is you're just gonna ask questions. You're gonna listen, because when you listen, you learn. Which leads me to the next one for affirmation: how you listen. Okay? How you listen. Listen, your kids don't want lecturing. They want you to listen. I learned that from my ex-fiance. She said, Anthony, every time I talk to you, you don't listen. I don't want you to I don't want you to fix the problem. Don't do nothing. Just listen. That's your problem. So you know what? I said, cool. You want me to talk? I'll just listen. Mm-hmm. And the relationship got so much better. Clearly it didn't work because she's my ex-fiance, but that did work. But it goes with our kids too. They want to know if I come to my parents with something real, something that is kind of embarrassing, something that I think they may not like, something that I think may make them upset. You know, one of the number one things that I found out why kids do not talk to their parents, because they're scared the parents won't listen. They're scared the parents are going to jump to a conclusion and jump to assumptions and respond off of what they think, but they never really fully heard the kid's heart and why this kid is coming to them. If you listen, I challenge you to just listen. Because here it is, the next one. What you do after you've asked a question and you've listened is very, very important. In that free tool that you're gonna get, I tell you, that first meeting that you have, do not respond. You ask your kids, are you having sex? Yes, do not respond. Step back, ask them, well, why? You ever thought about committing suicide? Yes. What? Don't freak out. Listen. Ask more questions. Get to the root of the issue. Then step back with your spouse. If you're a single parent, step back and talk to someone who else is a parent and bounce back some ideas. Pray about it, then come back and respond. But do not jump, you guys. Our senior vice president of the personalities is here. I report to him. He handles all the personalities from me, Chris Hogan, Rachel Cruz, Chrissy Wright, King Coleman. He doesn't handle Dave because Dave handles all of us. But he's been my number one person since I've been in the company, the first person I talked to before joining, and he doesn't even know this, but he's been probably, outside of my two fathers, the most influential guy to me when it comes to parenting. He has his daughter here who just graduated college just a couple of days ago, and I always watch how he spends time with his children. He told me, I think it's a couple of years ago, which was so funny. I was like, wow. He said, I'm going away. I said, hey man, we got a lot to do around here. He said, okay, that's cool. I have a son. I said, okay, that's cool. You have a son. He said, no, it's time for me to have the talk with my son. I was like, the talk? What do you mean the talk? He was like, the talk. And I was like, the talk? He said, yeah. He didn't take his kid to Burger King. He took his son, away for a weekend. Just got close with his son, put his son in a comfortable environment, and had the talk. Every time I turn around, look on social media, he doesn't post that much. He's getting old, but when he does post, 60% of his post is his family. Not just him and his wife, but also his kids. His son just turned 16, and he took his son to the number 2 golf course in the United States of America. and just drove his son around and watched his son golf. What is he doing? He's sending the message to his kids that not only do I love you, but nothing else comes before my family. Not Ramsey Solutions, not Dave Ramsey. The only person that comes before you is God. But outside of that, I will cut off my phone. I'm not gonna pick up Anthony ONeal's phone call at 9 o'clock because he's single and lonely at the house. I'll talk to him tomorrow. But what is he sending to his family? The same message that I told you earlier, the guy is sending to his son, I love you. And you guys, because of that, when we send that message, you guys, when we do it, that's when we really, really set up for what happens after the comma. Your kids may leave. They may go away from their faith, you guys. They may make some mistakes. We're all human. If your kids are like me, they're going to make a lot of mistakes. My parents are here, and I'll be honest, my parents were very strict. My dad is a pastor, my mama's a pastor. They preach. I know the word of God like it's the back of my hands. I grew up in church. There was no going to the dances. My dad thought I was dancing with the devil. I had to go to Friday night. It was no football games, going to the mall and chilling with my people. I had to go to church. I grew up. My parents deposited the God in me. They deposited some solid stuff in me. And I'll be honest in front of them, when I graduated, I said, I'm done with church. I want to take a break. I'm done. I went out there, got into school. I said, I'm a grown man. Got on the fraternity line, made some mistakes, got around the wrong people. I'm going away from my faith. I'm going away from what my parents put inside of me. And I'm just having a blast. I put myself into $35,000 worth of debt. Kicked out of school. When I kicked out of school, my California parents didn't let me come home. So I'm sleeping in the back of my car. My father here is calling me, looking for me. And I would not pick up his phone call because I was embarrassed. I was hurt that I am sleeping in the back of my car when neither sides of my family are broke. They taught me what to do. But I went away. I got to the lowest moment of my life, not because of my parents, but because of my own decisions. But here's the truth, you guys. God's word cannot go void. What you deposit into your kids, it has to come back. You have to pray like it all depends on God, and you have to keep praying for them that God will keep them when they do leave your house. But everything, love, that you've put inside of them will come back. I'm 34, turning 35 in a couple of months. And everything that my father and my mother's put inside of me, I'm seeing it personally come back. Now, when I get my kids, I won't be as strict as my daddy, but I'm definitely going to be just like my father in a lot of ways. Because here's the thing, you guys, the caliber of our kids' future will be determined by the choices that you make. It will be determined by if we can just recognize who they are. We're stepping closer. When we could be respectful to their opinion, even if their opinion is wrong, if we can just say, you know what, I respect your opinion, we are getting much closer. When we can reaffirm them and say, you know what, I love you. I don't care what you did. I don't care what's going on right now. I love you. You see, when we can do those things, you guys, that's when we connect. And that's when they can be illuminated and they are so bright. So when they leave our house and they go over here, they go off to school, they're going over here, they are the light in their schools. They are the light wherever they are because we took the time to connect. And our world is different because of you loving your son, loving your daughter, reaffirming them and respecting them and saying, no matter what, this is not about me, it is about God, and I want to connect you to that. Minneapolis, I love you, and I love your kids. And thank you so much for what you're doing as parents. I love you all. Thank you so much.